There's an awful lot of negativity being directed towards EVs these days, and some of it's just plain ridiculous. So here's a fresh take. The Kia EV9 is here, and it's pretty spectacular. And I don't just mean spectacular as an electric vehicle or a three-row SUV, or even just both of those things. I'm talking about the way that every single characteristic and component comes together that makes this the single most impressive new vehicle you can buy today. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Back when I tested the Ford F-150 Lightning, I called it the most important vehicle of my lifetime, and I still think that's true. Drop in demand be damned. But this thing bears some of the same responsibilities as far as sort of normalizing electrification. We're in this weird place. It seems like there's been a bit of a shift from skepticism to all-out hatred of electrification. I don't understand why. People are scared of what they don't know, I guess. So it's good to have a pretty normal vehicle to help people get used to it. And yeah, it still looks a little different, but so many EVs, they're very kind of quirky and niche. This thing is futuristic as it is. It looks like a three-row SUV, and that's because that's what it is. It's also affordable, relatively speaking, of course, and I get it, EVs are expensive. That is just a reality. This thing, it starts around $63,000 in Canada. In this GT line version I am driving, tops out at about 82 grand before tax. Importantly, every single version does qualify for the full $5,000 federal rebate off the purchase price or a 4-year lease. Cool thing is you can stack that with provincial and territorial incentives where they are available to help cut even more of that price tag. And that matters so much when you are looking at a vehicle this expensive. And let's be honest, when life is as unaffordable as it is right now. Now, I am not here to get into a Tesla versus everybody debate, but if you look at the Model Y, it is priced pretty similarly across the board to this one. But the big difference is this is a true three-row SUV. Probably the biggest trait that sets the EV9 apart is that it's a proper three-row SUV. And yes, I know you can get an extra set of seats in the Tesla Model Y, but that was very obviously not designed to be a 7-seater. And this was, but I love the way that Kia split up the space here. It didn't prioritize cargo room over passenger room or vice versa. There is a nice balance of both. I can even fit fairly comfortably in the third row seats with the second row in position for me to fit too. And that's something I couldn't do in the Mercedes GLS class, but you already know that because you already subscribe to the AutoTrader YouTube channel. Now, because this thing is an EV, it has some interesting characteristics, starting with this massive wheelbase. It's 3,100 millimeters. It's longer than the Kia Tellurides, as well as the Toyota Grand Highlanders. That gives you all that room inside. This thing's also low like a car, so it's easy to climb in and out. There are some gimmicky touches here too that exist because it's an EV. One of the ones that stands out the most, these lounge style seats inside that are a little bit quirky and weird, but then again, they give you a comfortable place to kick back while you're plugged in at the public charger. Now, just like any other EV out there, this thing really makes the most sense if you have access to charging at home. And I'd highly recommend installing a level 2 charger. It makes all the difference in the world. It cuts the charge times down considerably. But of course, you're going to lean on those public chargers if you were on a road trip, which this thing is capable of. So let's get to that. Now, there are 2 battery packs available, although I'm not really sure how many of the base version that Kia is going to sell in Canada. That's really the type of vehicle that's just to have a I don't know, fancy low advertised price. That's what's going to get you in the door. But this 99.8 kilowatt hour battery pack that's in the rest of the lineup, all but one, that's going to be the volume seller. And then range depends on the configuration. If you go with rear wheel drive, you're going to get more, so as much as 489 kilometers. And if you go with all wheel drive, like this range topper that I am driving, well, it's good for 435. But here's the thing. I have seen way more than that this week. When I plugged in the other day, 100% charge, I had 501 kilometers of range, which is exactly what an EV needs to be appealing to more people. I know that that 400 number is often cited, and that is good, but once we get into the 5s, the 6s, that's where it is more viable, and this thing looks like it fits the bill. I have been cruising around all day here. I've barely lost any charge. I am so impressed with just how well this thing does and how well it does in exceeding expectations. As far as the overall experience in here, it's not quite as conventional feeling as some other EVs out there, but it's not so bad. The learning curve isn't especially steep. There are some quirky traits though. Stuff like this gear selector stalk, that's a little weird. You got to twist it to switch from drive to reverse. And the other thing is, the power button is on it. And I've been driving this all week, and I just still can't get used to reaching here and hitting this power button that I can't really see from my upright seating position. So I don't love that. Some of the other controls in here, like this row of haptic switches for the shortcuts with this infotainment system, not so crazy about those. But again, those are minor nitpicks, and it shouldn't take you too long to adjust if you own this thing. Something else that's going to take a little bit of time to adjust to if this is your first time in an EV, regenerative braking. Now you can switch it off, but that's really not the right play, because that is one of those things that you can harness the kinetic energy that you would lose otherwise, put it into the battery pack, helps it keep charged up. Today when we've been shooting, I've watched the battery drop to 81% and then spike back up to 82 or 83 with just lifting off the throttle as we cruise up to stop signs and stoplights, that sort of stuff. And it is really cool. Now, you can switch it off, or there are 4 different settings that you can choose from. Each of them is stronger than the last, right up to full one pedal driving. I use that all the time. Now, you should use your mechanical brakes every once in a while, just so you don't run into issues where you have to have them replaced because of lack of use. But really, you could do one pedal driving all the time. Once you get used to modulating this throttle pedal, you basically never need to use the brakes outside of emergency situations and when you are shifting between drive, park, reverse, that sort of stuff. That I do like, but again, it might take you a little time to get the hang of it. And then when it is time to charge, well, again, if you have a level 2 at home or at work, you can do a full charge in about 8 hours and 45 minutes. If you hook up to a DC fast charger, this one can hit speeds of up to 350 kilowatts. Now, that is in ideal conditions. Very rare that you're gonna see that, especially here in Canada. But that means you could jump from 10 to 80% in as little as 24 minutes. And that'll give you all kinds of range. And even today, we plugged in at lunchtime. We didn't eat for very long, maybe 25 minutes tops, and we went from 81 to 91% at only a 50 kilowatt station. And the other cool thing is, generally once you get above 80% charge, well, you see those speeds drop. That did not happen here. The slowest speed we hit while it was hooked up to the charger, 49.6 kilowatts. That is amazing, and it makes this, again, very viable in all sorts of situations. Honestly, none of that is unreasonable. And if you're shopping for a 3-row SUV to do the typical family stuff, take the kids to school in the morning, maybe to soccer practice, and then head to work yourself, there is no reason not to consider the EV9. And even if you do road trip, even if you drive from Toronto to Montreal, from Vancouver to Kelowna, from Montreal to Quebec, doesn't matter. It is very doable to drive this. Yes, you're gonna have to stop, but like my friends with kids always say, you're gonna be stopping for 20 minutes here and there anyways for everyone to use the washroom, get a bite to eat. Who cares? Plug into a charger, make good use of your time, and this will work for road trips. Now, obviously, this isn't going to get you from Ontario to Florida, but I've said it before, we are going to have to change the way we look at transportation as we shift towards electrification. But I do think this is a solution that works, and it's also really good. And if you're still not convinced, know that this is easily one of the smoothest vehicles I have ever driven. The suspension is super supple. This powertrain is so pristine. The power delivery is incredible. Not just quickness, smoothness. When you roll onto the throttle pedal, it just takes off in this very solid cocoon of near luxury. I am going to say it. It does feel up there with something like a BMW, a Mercedes. It is so nice. Kia has done such a fantastic job building this vehicle as a halo, not just for its own brand, but for electrification at large. To recap, I like how silky smooth the Kia EV9 is, that its space is spread evenly between the passenger and cargo areas, and how tech forward it is without feeling too overwhelming. I don't like the gear selector stock or some of the other controls inside, but that's pretty trivial stuff in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so the EV9 isn't perfect, but that's because no vehicle is, not even a brown diesel manual wagon. Okay, jokes aside, what this thing lacks in perfection, it makes up for with purpose. This is the EV the market needs right now, and it happens to be really good. Kia did a bang-up job on this thing, and the way it all comes together makes this SUV so damn impressive. The fact that it's a proper three-row, well, that's just icing on the cake.